They stand silently on a remote island in the South Pacific, nearly 1,000 stone figures, each carved with haunting precision, gazing out toward the horizon. These are the Moai of Easter Island. Massive, mysterious, and ancient, the statues have puzzled archaeologists, historians, and conspiracy theorists for centuries. Who built them? How were they moved? And why did the civilization behind them collapse? This is the story of Easter Island and the eerie legacy of a people who may have destroyed themselves in pursuit of greatness. Easter Island, or Rapa Nui as it's known to its native people, is one of the most isolated inhabited islands on Earth. Located over 2,000 miles from the nearest continental landmass, it sits in the vast emptiness of the Pacific Ocean. When Polynesian voyagers arrived, likely sometime between 800 and 1200 AD, they found a lush, forested paradise. It was rich in birds, vegetation, and fertile soil, ideal for a thriving culture to emerge. Using stone tools, they built homes, cultivated sweet potatoes, and established clans with distinct territories and beliefs. But centuries later, when Europeans landed in 1722, that lush paradise had become a ghost of its former self. What happened in between remains one of the most debated collapses in human history. At the heart of Rapa Nui's legacy are the Moai, towering stone statues carved from volcanic tuff. There are 887 documented Moai, ranging from modest 6-foot figures to giants over 30 feet tall. Some weigh more than 80 tons. Most are placed on ahu, ceremonial stone platforms, with their backs to the sea facing inland toward the people. They weren't just decorative. Each Moai represented a revered ancestor or chieftain, believed to offer spiritual protection and mana, a life force or divine power, to their descendants. The islanders believed that as long as their ancestors watched over them, they would prosper. So they carved more statues, bigger ones, taller ones. They kept building and building. But how did they move these megaliths from quarry to coast without modern tools? This question has baffled researchers for decades. Theories range from dragging them on sledges or wooden rollers to using log frames and ropes. But one of the most compelling ideas came from a 2012 experiment where researchers demonstrated that the statues could be walked upright, using a coordinated rocking motion with teams pulling ropes from each side. It mimicked the Rapa Nui oral tradition. The statues walked themselves. This technique not only explains the narrow, worn pathways across the island, but also the few Moai found fallen on their faces, perhaps toppled mid-journey when balance was lost. Still, the feat is astounding. These weren't machines. They were ordinary people, shaping and transporting massive stone giants across rugged terrain. As the centuries passed, Moai construction intensified. Building these statues wasn't a side project. It became the dominant focus of the entire culture. Clans competed for status and spiritual favor by erecting bigger and more elaborate Moai. But there was a cost. To move these giants, they needed rope, made from bark. They needed sleds or levers, made from trees, and those trees didn't grow back quickly. Easter Island was once covered in palm forests, some trees as tall as 100 feet. But by the time of European contact, not a single tree taller than 10 feet remained. The island had been deforested into ruin, and with the trees went the birds, and the canoes, and the soil, eroded by wind, no longer protected by roots. Eventually, food sources dwindled, crops failed, the balance between man and nature broke, and when survival was at stake, the once unified clans turned on each other. Warfare erupted across the island. Clans raided each other for resources. The sacred Moai, once revered, were now targets of destruction, symbols of rival power. They were intentionally toppled, shattered, and desecrated. More than 90% of all Moai were found lying face down, broken, a tragic marker of civil unrest. According to oral accounts, cannibalism emerged during this dark period, not as a ritual, but as an act of desperation. Whether exaggerated or not, the cultural trauma was very real. When Dutch explorers arrived in 1722, they saw no towering statues, no trees, and no grandeur. Just a small, fragmented population living in caves, trying to survive. For a long time, most people thought the Moai were just giant heads. That was all that was visible, large stone faces poking out from the ground. But recent excavations revealed something shocking. Most Moai have full bodies buried underground up to the shoulders or neck. Carved torsos, arms, and even detailed carvings on their backs were uncovered. Some contain petroglyphs, symbols whose meanings remain unclear. Were they clan markers, spiritual warnings, astronomical codes? No one knows. Excavations at the quarry, Rano Raraku, have also revealed unfinished Moai still embedded in the rock, as if work suddenly stopped, mid-project, during a civilization-wide collapse. After the Moai era ended, a new religion emerged, the Tangata Manu, or Birdman cult. Each year, tribes sent champions to compete in a brutal ritual: swim to a nearby islet, collect the first sooty tern egg of the season, and return it unbroken. Whoever succeeded earned their chief the title of Birdman, a sacred leader for the year. This shift in belief systems marks a society reinventing itself after collapse. From ancestor worship to survival-based meritocracy, Rapa Nui was adapting, even in ruin. But by then, it was too late. Disease, slavery, and colonial exploitation decimated what remained. By the 19th century, only a few dozen Rapa Nui were left. Like the pyramids of Egypt or Stonehenge, the Moai have drawn the attention of ancient alien theorists. Authors like Eric von Däniken suggest that extraterrestrial beings may have helped build or influence the statues. The theory is based on the size of the Moai, their mysterious transportation, and their haunting, otherworldly design. But there's no real evidence for alien involvement. And while it's tempting to imagine a higher power at play, the truth is likely more human and more sobering. This was a culture that pushed the limits of what was possible with stone, muscle, and belief. A society that chose spiritual grandeur over sustainability. And paid the price. Today, Easter Island is home to just over 7,000 people. The Moai still stand, some restored, some buried, some broken. But they all tell the same story, of ambition, of faith, of collapse, and of warning. Because when a society consumes its environment in pursuit of greatness, when status becomes more important than survival, the result isn't mystery, it's extinction. The Moai aren't just monuments, they are tombstones for a world that once was, and a future that still could be.